Hello everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a review for this book. Oh look, the light's shining on it. Extraordinary Retribution by Erec Stebbins. Now, this is part of a blog tour. If you're not sure what a blog tour is, it's basically where a book tours different blogs and each blog either does a review or a guest post or an interview with the author, and it's just to kind of get the book a bit more publicity and more reviews and get more people interested in it. So I am doing a review for my stop of the tour, and I have left a link in the description box below for the written review to the book, but I'm going to do a talking review as well because sometimes I like to talk a lot about books. So, Extraordinary Retribution by Erec Stebbins. Now, I'm going to be brutally honest, when I first heard about this book and I was first contacted about reading it, I was like, ha, no way, why would I want to read about a global cover-up that threatens our democratic foundations and a rogue CIA agent? And yes, no, I wouldn't want to read about that normally, and I was like, no thank you. But then, do you know what, I thought, hang on a minute, why am I saying no to this book because I'm judging it by the blurb and the cover? That's not how you should judge books. You should read a book and then judge it. So I thought, do you know what, I'm going to read it. So I said, yeah, I'm going to read it, I'll review it for you. And then I got sent a physical copy, and the author very kindly signed it. Thanks, Eric, very much appreciated. And it arrived, and I kind of put it on my bookshelf, and I thought, no, I'll read it later. I'll read it next week. I'll read it tomorrow. And I kind of kept putting it off because there was other books I wanted to read, and I was like, oh, I don't really know if I want to read this anymore. But then last weekend I sat down and I thought, okay, I have to read this book this week because I have to review it. Let's start it now, because if it's going to take a long time to read, then you've got a whole week. So I sat down, or I laid down in bed, and I thought, right, I'll read the first couple of chapters and see how it is, and then I can kind of gauge whether I'm going to need a lot of time to read this or not much time at all. So I sat down in bed and I started to read, and I'd read a quarter of the book before I'd even realised that I hadn't stopped to even think about what I was doing. And I think that says it all, really, that this book is gripping, and even for somebody like me who didn't think they would enjoy it, I really, really enjoyed it. I have to say that the first chapter threw me, and if I was going to be like I was back many years ago when I read the first chapter of a book, and if I didn't like it, put it straight down, then I wouldn't have read this book. But I got past the first chapter, and then the second chapter, and then the third chapter, and as I started to read on, the story was starting to come together, and all the characters were kind of intertwining, and it really became this really interesting, fast-paced thriller. Now I'm going to try and give you an idea of what the book is about, but with any books like this, the premise and the plot is quite detailed, and it's quite difficult to kind of talk about it without giving too much away, but I'm going to try. So this is what I understand from the book, and I could be wrong, but this is what I got from it. Basically, years and years ago, after 9/11, the American government and the CIA decided to take terrorists, or people that they thought were terrorists, American citizens who they thought were terrorists, take them out of the country, take them to a different country, I think it was Syria maybe, I can't quite remember what it said in the book, and then torture them and kill them because they thought they were terrorists. But there was a man who is now going around killing everybody that was involved in this like plan. So he's killed the CIA agents who were there, who were doing the torturing. He's killed the people that would have known about it, and he's trying to get justice by going around and killing everybody that was involved. Now, at this point in the book, we don't know why he's killing them. We don't know whether he is doing it because he wants justice, whether he's doing it because he's just a crazy mad killer. But what we know is that he's doing it really cleverly, and nobody has yet pieced together that the people that are dying are all linked in some way, because there was a massive cover-up, so not even the police can understand why all of these random people are dying. Then we're introduced to a priest called Father Lopez, and his brother called Miguel has just been killed, and as we find out, he has just been killed by this crazy man who is going around killing everybody else. So Father Lopez then gets involved with she's apparently a rogue CIA agent, and she's called Hudson. I think her first name is Sarah, I can't be quite sure. I think it's Sarah Hudson, but anyway, her name's Hudson, and they join together to kind of go on this mission to discover who is behind all these killings and why people are being killed. And obviously Father Lopez wants to go because he wants to get justice for his brother, and the rogue CIA agent is going because she also wants to kind of find out what's going on, because she doesn't like what's happening. And as these two go on this journey together, they find out why these people are being killed, they find out who's going to be killed next, and they find out that somebody who's quite important is going to be killed, and they have to race to get there before the killer does, to try and save them, but nobody is listening to them because the Father Lopez and Hudson have been painted in the media as these two criminals, because obviously the government and the police and everybody else are trying to cover up what really happened. So that's it kind of in a nutshell, which I don't know if that made much sense, but that's kind of what I got from it and what I can kind of tell you without giving too much away. So I really enjoyed the book. The pace was perfect. I was constantly sitting there like reading like really fast, and then normally if I'm like sitting in bed reading a book, I'll be like, okay, I'll put it down now and I go to bed. I was like, just one more chapter, and then I'd read the next chapter and I'd be like, okay, just one more. And that's what I really loved about this book, because the chapters were quite short, so I could naughtily just sit there and read lots of chapters when I was supposed to be sleeping, which is always a really good thing about a book, because if a book can keep me up at night when I should be awake, when I should be asleep, then that is a good book in my eyes, because, you know, not many books do that nowadays. A lot of books I can kind of put to the side and sleep, but this one was like, please read me, keep reading me, so I did, and I loved it, and I finished this in less than 24 hours as well, which also goes to show how much I enjoyed it. Erec's writing is really quite different to other writing that I have been reading recently, and kind of to a lot of writing I've read in the past. It's quite action based, it's quite focused on what's actually happening rather than the characters' feelings and their kind of reactions to things, and that is why I gave this book 4 stars. I was so close to giving it 5, but I think the reason why I gave it 4 stars is because I felt that in places the characters didn't feel very developed in certain situations, and I didn't really feel like I knew them as characters. I kind of just knew them as these people that were trying to save the world. They didn't really feel like, I didn't feel like I knew them enough, and I think if I had known a bit more background about them, or perhaps I was more aware of their mannerisms and the kind of things that they did or said, or the little things that they did that were kind of unique to them, I think I would have found it a lot easier to kind of visualise them and picture them and kind of enjoy their journey more. Not to say that I didn't enjoy it, but I just think little things and just more character descriptions would have made it even better in my eyes. But that's not a massive thing. It's not something that means that you shouldn't read this book. It's just something that I think potentially is something that could be thought of in the future when he is writing another book. Like I said, the pace is really good, the characters were quite good, could have been more developed. I like the fact though that the 2 main characters were so kind of in the forefront of all the action, and they were always being talked about and they were always involved. There was kind of more background characters that, again, it would have been nice to know a little bit more about them, but it didn't matter too much, I guess, because I managed to follow the story and I managed to find out what happened to everybody. But yeah, just a little bit more character description would have made it even better in my eyes. The plot was really interesting. Like I said before, this is not the kind of book I would normally go for or normally read, so I can't say I've read much into this genre to be able to compare it to other books in this genre, so I'm not sure whether it's quite unique or whether there's books that kind of similar plots and ideas like in this genre, but like I say, I'm not sure. But for me it was a really nice premise and quite a unique thing that I've never read before. I did find it a little bit confusing in places, which is a shame because, you know, it would have been nice to understand everything that was going on, but I think that's down to reader rather than writer. I think it's just because I am not used to this genre that some of the things confused me a little bit. But again, it didn't affect too much because I think I got the whole plot and I managed to find out what happened in the end. One thing I must point out is that if you are squeamish, then I wouldn't read this book, or I'd pay a bit more care when you're reading this book, because this is quite a squeamish book. There's a bit of torture and quite a lot of gore and gunning and shooting and killing people, so if you're not really keen on that kind of stuff, then I would avoid this book because there's quite a lot of it. Luckily I'm quite immune to that now in the fictional world anyway. I find that when I read books and things like that happen, I can just go, okay, that's disgusting, and move on. I don't kind of think, oh, I can't read this book anymore. So yeah, if you're kind of squeamish about stuff like that, then maybe this book isn't particularly for you. But it doesn't, again, it's something that needed to be in the book because it was kind of what the book was about, so I can't really say that it was a bad thing. What else was I going to say? There was one thing else. Oh, I think, yeah, the book is divided into 3 parts, which was quite strange because I didn't feel like when the book kind of divided into the parts, I didn't really feel like it needed to be divided into parts. It just kind of flowed nicely without having to be divided anyway. So I'd be interested to know why he decided to put like part 1, part 2, part 3, because to me they all just flowed nicely together, and I didn't really feel like there needed to be different parts because it kind of just didn't need it. But it'd be nice to know why he decided to do that and whether there was a reason behind it. I think that was all I was going to say about the book. Really interested in Erec as an author. Definitely would like to read more of his work in the future. I think that he is quite a good kind of... He's one of those authors that when you discover him, you kind of think, okay, this man or this author is somebody that I will look out for in the future, because sometimes when I read debuts or I start reading a new author, sometimes I just kind of think, okay, I've read that book, nah, I won't bother looking out for any more of their books, or I won't like search for any more of their books. I won't, unless of course they land in my hands, I won't read them, kind of thing. But I think with Erec, he's the kind of author who I think actually I will try and physically and what's the word? See, I've lost my train of thought now. But I'll purposely search for him. I will look for him because I want to know more about him and I want to read more of his books. So that's a really good thing. And also, this might be a bit of a spoiler alert, so if you don't want to have any spoilers, then stop listening now. But what happened at the end suggests that the characters might come back and we might have a series with them. I'm not sure, but the way the book ended kind of made it seem as if, well, it was open anyway to interpretation that there could be a sequel, and it was open so that if the author, even if he's not planning at the moment, if he did want to do a sequel, then he would be able to do that because the characters are in the right place and at the right stage where they could easily do that. So I'd be really excited if there's a sequel, and I would definitely want to read it. But yeah, definitely worth reading if you like this kind of genre. Also worth reading if you're kind of new to the genre, because I am quite new to it and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, definitely a book to look out for. Extraordinary Retribution by Erec Stebbins. I gave this book 4 stars. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!